Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
This is going to be a lot of fun, especially for people who want to travel. With CruiseOne, there's no limit to how far we go to make your dream vacation a reality, says Ron SCAVRON. He says that we'll journey near and far, trudge through the deepest marshes, climb the highest peaks, and sail amid boundless waters to guarantee that you get the best prices available. And I can add, with the nicest people. Ron and his wife, CHERYL SCAVRON, are really top of the league. And I know a lot of people who work in this field, but they are so nice, and they've been around for a long time. They're over there at the festival marketplace. Their organization's called CruiseOne. And if you just want to call them after we're going to get started, and you'll be able to make this call and just ask them anything. 954-227-7772, or you can visit them on the web, cruise.com. So, Ron, now that I gave you all this great compliments, and I have to just ask you, you've been cruising, well, let's say selling cruises for a long time. Why is such a charming man like you in this business?
How did I get into this business? It's a long, long story. Originally, my wife and I came from have a medical background. I was a pharmacist. My wife was a nurse. We met in a hospital 43 years ago, and she's been driving me nuts ever since. We got into this business after moving to Florida from up north, like everybody else does. And we started cruising first for my daughter's bat mitzvah. She wanted to have a party, but we had just moved to Florida when she turned 13, and we didn't know a lot of people, so we couldn't have a big extravaganza like we had for my son. So we asked her what she would like to do, and she said, I would like to go on a cruise. Some of my classmates have been on cruises, and that's all they can talk about. So that's our first cruise. It was back in 1989.
Where did you go?
We, to be honest with you, we went to the Caribbean.
Oh.
I don't remember the islands.
No, but the Caribbean,
the Caribbean, and for cruisers out there, they know what I mean, but it doesn't really matter where you go.
That's right, it doesn't, but did she have a good time? Was it the right thing?
Yes, it was the absolute right thing. Cruises are made for multi-generational families, especially the cruise line we chose that time was Royal Caribbean. And Royal Caribbean by far has a wonderful program for any age. There's something to do for everyone. And we chose that, thank God, and we had a great time. Years later, we then decided to cruise every year. Years later, we decided to buy a cruise franchise. CruiseOne is a franchise individually operated and owned by us. We're part of World Travel Holdings, which is a large conglomerate, one of the largest sellers of travel in the world. This allows us to get the best prices for cruises and other types of travel. We don't just do cruises. We do all types of travel, from tours in Europe or anywhere in the world for that matter, river cruising, all-inclusive resorts in the Caribbean.
You're really a travel agency,
correct,
but you do a lot of cruises.
Correct. Cruising is about 80% of our business.
And I can understand why. We're here on the water ourselves. It's not like you're in Chicago. You're here in South Florida. We have Miami where cruise ships can depart from. And we have, of course, Fort Lauderdale. And it seems like we have an age group over 50, mostly probably 60, 65. And I, for one, I've never been a cruiser directly. I started doing that with my husband a few years ago, and I prefer it. I can go there and I can just relax. I take books. Sometimes I don't even read. There's so much to do on the ship. I love cruising, Ron.
Well, most people, when they do their first cruise and they've never cruised before, they're typically in awe. And the first thing they say when they get off that cruise is, when are we going again?
Well, I thought they said, boy, did I gain weight. I ate everything.
You have to pace yourself. I won't lie about that. You do have to pace yourself. I remember the first cruise or couple cruises that I went on. To be honest, after the third or fourth day, my pants didn't fit me so well. It was tough. I had to suck it in. But you can pace yourself. I do today. After 50 cruises, I learned how to pace myself with the eating thing.
But it's still very nice, especially as a woman who cooks. I cook at night most of the time, and to just walk up there and grab this and grab that and have an early breakfast and then have lunch and then have dinner, then have a snack. And I mean, but there's plenty to do. And also, I always say when people say, oh, well, so much walking on a ship, well, that's because you eat. So you walk it off, right?
Well, more important, I think, what you just said was, you don't have to cook. You don't have to do anything. A cruise is a no-brainer. A cruise is the most valued vacation you can take and the least expensive. You cannot reproduce a vacation on land like you would have on a cruise ship, no matter what cruise ship you go on. There's things for everyone to do. There's shows, different types of activities such as ice skating rinks, rock
for
climbing
the kids,
walls.
You were talking about taking your family, and you know yourself. I mean, the kids, they can go off, and whether they're babies, they have nurseries to take care of them. But the kids love this. They say, "Bye, Mom." That's it. You don't see them for the whole time.
Well, it's like with children, it's like sending them to camp. The cruise lines have brought about a situation where they take these children and they're not babysitters. They keep them active all day. Most of the cruise lines are utilize computers for the kids to work on and play with, so forth and so on. They do so many different types of things. They entertain the adults. They have talent shows, so forth and so on. It's amazing. My kids, the first thing, my grandkids, not my kids anymore, but my grandchildren, when they get on a ship, the first thing they do is they know enough to sign up for the kids program because, like you said, we never see them. They don't want to be with us anymore. They're so active. It's like going to camp. And it's a vacation where, you can be in the same facility with your children, yet you can separate yourself from them and have your own vacation as well.
And the entertainment is great. But let me tell everybody, so you're listening to Ron SCAVRON, and you can hear he's so enthusiastic. He's the kind of guy that you want to book your cruise or your vacation because he knows so much. They've been doing this a long time. They're just so friendly and so kind. And I just can tell you, I haven't met people like this in a long time with the travel agents because, the whole travel agency kind of went down years ago. And these people have retained it because they're good. So this is Ron SCAVRON. His wife is CHERYL. And they are at the Festival Marketplace over there on Sample Road in Pompano Beach. Call them at 954-227-7772. That's 954-227-7772. Remember, this is Pencil Talk Radio. Write it down. And you can visit them at ycruise. That's just the letter Y, ycruise.com. So we just answered that question, why cruise, didn't we?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, you know a lot of the ships because you go on them. So when people come to you, in fact, I was sitting at your office there at the flea market, and I saw people walking by because you have advertising for whether you're going to Cuba or going other places, and they all want to ask questions. Should I do this? What should I do that? And you seem to know the answers.
Well, it's our experience, but as you alluded to earlier, South Florida is the cruise capital of the world. More cruises go out of South Florida, more people cruise out of South Florida than any place else in the world. And we get the newest ships from all the fleets in South Florida. Part of our job is to tour these ships when they come in, when they're new. We have to find out where the best cabins are located, what kind of facilities they have for children, so we can speak to these questions when people do bring them to our attention. There's a lot of difference between agents that are here in South Florida, because we have the opportunity to tour these ships. If you're in the middle of Kansas, it's pretty difficult. Not only Kansas, call centers on some of the cruise companies are in South America. There's no water around. Most of the people have never been on a ship. We tour these ships all the time. Besides, we cruise on these ships all the time. We're taken out by the cruise line and wined and dined, so forth and so on, and we get to learn the ship and what it has to offer. So we have a lot to talk about. Our favorite cruisers are what we call cruise virgins. And
it's going to be sex on the radio. I can hear it already.
Rock and roll and sex.
Okay.
We love talking to them because they have no idea of what they're in for. And like I said before, typically when people walk on a cruise ship, they're in awe. I can relate it to walking into, like a Ritz hotel. It is, most of these ships are beyond beautiful. They have so much to offer everyone. And the value in what you pay to go on a cruise is unbelievable. You can't reproduce it on land, as I said before.
It's overwhelming, actually. I know when you walk in there, you see the chandeliers, you see the staircases, and they greet you with all sorts of things. And I know people, actually, groups, a lot of people don't have someone to go with. And so how do they do that? Well, I know they go in groups, and you're a specialist in groups, aren't you? How does that work?
Yes. People come to us, different types of affinity groups, whether they be church groups or family groups. We just sent a men's club group out. It was almost 100 passengers.
Men all traveling together? 100?
No, it was a men's club. They decided to take their wives.
Oh, okay.
Why, I don't know.
Okay.
They could have had a lot more. No.
Oh, okay, we won't go there.
But we won't go there. But this men's club backed this cruise, and we do charity cruises where people get together and have a charity that they're backing, and we take part in helping that charity out when we book these groups. There's all different types of groups. There's meetings at sea, different companies. Typically they have their yearly meetings in a hotel. We let them know that on a cruise ship, it's much more affordable. Everything is there. They don't have to pay additional for union workers, so forth and so on, to bring in sound equipment and so forth. Everything is there. And a lot of ships today, not all of them, but a lot of ships have convention centers, and they can do a big time convention, just like they have in Las Vegas. And those that do have their employees there on board, they can't escape. So if they're doing educational work and things like that, they have to be there, and it lends itself to a great way to have your corporate meetings at sea.
We know, Ron, you know so much about the inner workings of ships. Let me ask you this. I have never yet been on a cruise ship where the staff are not hospitable. I don't know, they get them from a lot of different countries, but they must have a great training program.
They do. Some cruise ships are better than others, but if you're on a cruise ship and a staff member doesn't acknowledge your presence, that's not a good cruise line. You'll see on the better cruise lines where all staff members, whether they be officers or the guys that scrub the decks, they acknowledge your presence. Good morning, Mr. SCAVRON, so forth and so on. You'll find that almost everywhere. And with that, it makes you feel like you're part of their family. It makes you feel at home, more relaxed, comfortable. It's part of, it's show business. It's the entertainment and show business that they put on as well. On the smaller ships, you can actually be sitting at the bar and have the captain of the ship sit down next to you. Where there's, 400 or 500 people, you actually are part of their family for that week or 10, 20 days, whatever you choose. And again, it just makes you feel welcome and at home. I feel some cruise lines that I go on, I feel like I'm walking on air. It puts me in a totally different place. I can relax. I can do as much as I want or as little as I want. If I need to rest, I can rest. If I want to jump around and get crazy, stay out late at night, gamble, and see the shows, I can do that as well. And you're talking about groups, smaller groups like family groups. You can be away with that family, let's say 10, 20 people, dine with them, maybe see a show with them. But then if you want to spend some time on your own, you can do that. Yet you're all together as a family. So it lends itself to being one of the best ways for family vacations and family groups, so forth and so on.
I think it's a good time for me to also suggest people not try to do this online. And you and I were talking at your office, but imagine here you have a family of 20, or if you have a group from some condo for 20 people or 50 people, and they all book online because they think it's cheaper. Right. Now some things happen. Now your organization, you watch over them like they're your children, don't you?
Absolutely. And to remark about your comment, it is not cheaper to book online. There's no...
People think it is.
Huh? Pardon me?
People think it is.
People think it is, but it is definitely not. Our services are free. So why should you try and do something once a year, twice a year, when we can help you do something that we do all day, every day? We know the differences. There are a lot of variables. If we don't put our people on the right ship, they're going to have a bad time. They won't come back to us.
When you say on the right ship, you mean after you've spoken to them and you know what they like and what they don't like.
Exactly. Cruise ships are like cars, automobiles, or hotels. You have the one low-end brand, and then you have the high-end brand. I won't use any names. That would be inappropriate, but there are differences in cruise lines. And it all depends on what the customer wants, what they're looking to get out of this vacation. I'll give you a simple example. When I take my family and my grandchildren, I want a ship that has a lot of high activity. And that's basically for the kids, because if the kids don't have a good time, you're not going to have a good time. When I go away with my wife by ourselves or with couples of our age and so forth and so on a vacation, there's a different type of ship to go on. So there's many choices out there, and it's our job to find out what the person wants out of their vacation and then direct them. It's ultimately their choice, but we direct them in such a way that we believe we help them get the best product for what they're spending.
So, Ron, how long does it take when you book? Should you book a month ahead, 6 months ahead, a year ahead? I mean, let's say we decide to go on a cruise ship and I want to go 2 weeks from now. Can I do that?
You can. You'll probably pay more. There's a fallacy out there that people come to us all the time and say, you have any last-minute deals? Historically, there used to be situations where people could go to the port on Saturday morning and wait there for no shows or for cancellations and get on the ship that day. Since 9/11, that is over with. The ship actually closes its booking capacity a day and a half before sailing, so that the names can be run through our national security system. I forgot where I was going with this.
I was asking how fast, can I do it for just overnight? Can I say, okay, well, let's go on a cruise?
Right. The best thing to do when you're booking or planning a vacation in general is to plan ahead. The prices are better typically. In our business, if the prices go down, we lower the price. So they don't have to wait for the best deal, okay? Sometimes there are deals throughout the booking season. Let's say if you book a year out anytime up until 60 days prior to sailing. If that price goes down, we can lower your price.
Really?
So it doesn't pay. This way you get the best cabin you want, you get the ship you want. If I try to put you on a ship this week, more than likely this week it wouldn't happen. It would have to be something at least 2 weeks. If anything on a Monday, if I try to book somebody on a Saturday, it's sold out. Ships go out 100%. So it's much better to plan ahead. I would say the average cruiser plans about 6 months ahead.
Really? 6 months ahead.
Which is wise.
Well, it's wise, but so people really do have to know. And I think if they sat down with you, and I know what I wanted to ask you, but first let me tell everybody again how to get in touch with you, because it's so good to have a real bona fide travel agent right here in the radio station, and someone who, he and his wife are very caring people, and they've been doing this a long time. In fact, they just got a major award from the CruiseOne organization, the top people. They did it all. They did more than anyone else, and it's because people keep coming back to them. I can see how they treat people. That's what the business is. So let me tell you again, they are located, CruiseOne is located at Festival Marketplace on Sample Road in Pompano Beach. You can call them at 954-227-7772. That's 954-227-7772, or you can visit them on the web at ycruise.com. Now, this show will be on YouTube, so if your friends didn't listen, you want them to hear it, you'll be able to go a few weeks from now and actually see Ron, and you'll be able to hear all this information. Let's keep going on this, because, we've talked once, some people talk about, do I want an outside cabin? Can I just do something inside? Because I guess if they're looking at their money, maybe they want to spend more money gambling, and they don't really care because they're not in their room very much. That's the kind of stuff you were saying about consulting with them, isn't it?
Right. And there are choices that you have that you make based on what you're budgeted for. There are basically three types of cabins. There's an interior cabin that has no window. It's just an inside cabin. And then you have a ocean view cabin with a window. And then you have a cabin with a private veranda or balcony. The newer ships, 80% of the ocean side cabins are balcony cabins. So there's a small amount of ocean view cabins. In the old days, only the suites had balconies. Because people got upgraded to a balcony one time, they wanted it for the rest of their cruise experiences. So the cruise lines decided to build these ships with balcony cabins, and the most cabins on the ship are balcony cabins. It depends on what is important to you. I tell people I don't like to waste people's money, and that's another thing that we do, is try to guide them so that they don't waste their money. I've had people say, I want an inside cabin, I want the cheapest cabin on the ship, and I get them that price, but that cabin's on the bottom deck. And they say, well, I don't want to be on the bottom deck. I want to be up high. And I'll say to them, what difference does it make? You don't know where you are anyway if you're in an inside cabin.
True.
Okay?
So it's actually easier, isn't it, to get to everything else?
Well, it is. Why spend more money, though, when you move up in decks, when you're not gaining anything? As opposed to when you book a balcony cabin, you're gaining something. It changes your experience. For instance, you come back from a show, gambling, whatever, dancing, whatever you do late in the evening, and you want to have a nice glass of wine out under the moonlight. It's very romantic. Or, like me, I get up early in the morning. My wife likes to sleep late. Okay, I can go out on my balcony, have my coffee, enjoy myself, relax. It's a real peaceful feeling out there. If you've never been at sea, there's something that you ought to do. If you live in South Florida, you should be ashamed of yourself if you haven't been on a cruise. It's where it's at down here. And so many people, now we have a lot of Canadian visitors, this time of year, and that's what they do when they come down. They stay at their, condo or whatever while they're here, but they usually do 1 or 2 weeks of cruising while they're here as well.
And one thing, Ron, that we should tell people, and that's part of the advice why people need to talk to you first, passports. That's all changed. A lot of things before we didn't need passports. And now I know there's a new rule that you have to have a passport that's at least isn't going to expire within 6 months.
Correct.
And
that's
that was
correct.
a new thing that happened to me. So, but you see, that's why people should go to travel agents.
Well, we recommend everybody to get a passport. But is the reality. If you are a U.S. citizen in the United States and you're a U.S. citizen, you do not need a passport to cruise in the Caribbean. You can cruise with a driver's license and a birth certificate with a raised seal. In other words, it cannot be a photocopy. It has to be an original birth certificate.
But you can't go off to the island,
No, you can go on the islands. You can do anything. As a U.S. citizen, you can do anything with just a driver's license and a birth certificate.
The original birth certificate.
Right. Now, Congress has supposedly been going to change that law for the last about 10 years now. We keep hearing every year that next year it's going to be passports only, so forth and so on. So that's why we say it's wise to get a passport. It's a lot easier, too, when you're boarding the ship to have a passport. It just makes it so much simpler. So I recommend that, if you have nothing to do today and you've been thinking about getting a passport.
We're lucky because Miami is not far. What if you lived,
Well, you don't even have to go to Miami. They have in Coral Springs, they have a place called City Hall at the mall, at the Coral Square Mall. And in that mall, you can get a passport.
But you'll help people with all this.
Absolutely.
This is why I really highly recommend Ron and his wife CHERYL, SCAVRON. And they will really put you on the right ship. They'll put you in the right place on the ship, and they'll help you. So we're going to be having Ron back. Hopefully CHERYL will be back with you next time. And we'll be talking about more things. So thanks, Ron. This was really great. I always learn a lot when I sit and talk with you.
It's been my pleasure, Anita. Thank you for having me on.